And these are not only rooms for you to be in, they're rooms for you to go into, and to be in, and to go out of. So what's interesting about sculpture in a situation like this is that the way in is different than the way out. What you see when you come in, what you experience as you walk to the back end is very different, if I've done my job, than what you see on the way out. Ambiguity is what interests me, and immediacy. I search for ambiguity's edge, boundaries of change, the ball on top of the curve, objects, ideas, moments that are neither one thing nor the other, but one thing becoming another. My problem is to make a place, to make a strong, powerful place, to use these objects that I make, the things you saw in the studio, the things here, to make a powerful place that changes the way you feel when you're in it. A place that confuses you enough, just that edge of confusion, that edge of not quite understanding what's going on. Just enough so that you are just uncomfortable enough so that you see the world a little differently, that you begin to feel yourself in a situation where you have to look again. You have to look with new eyes. The American poet Emily Dickinson defined poetry as making strange. And in a certain sense, I think all art is about that. It's about just enough, creating a situation that's just strange enough so that you have to rethink the world. And in the process of rethinking the world, everything changes. Your own life changes, your own being changes. For a moment, that's all. Disappears, doesn't matter. But for a moment, you see the world differently. That's what these things are about. They're about a kind of slight disorientation, a situation in which there is nothing quite makes sense. Everything is familiar. These forms are familiar. They're squares and rectangles and simple forms, just angles that are 90 degrees, angles that are not quite 90 degrees. It's oil paint on paper, it's steel. You understand everything. Everything is ordinary except the result. And the result is that confusion, that kind of doubt of what's going on. And that to me is what's interesting, and the only thing that's important. But the way that happens is very interesting because there's no narrative, there's no story, But in a way there is a narrative. The narrative is a narrative of small differences. It's a narrative of angles that are not 90 degrees, but almost 90 degrees. You can't tell whether they're 90 degrees or not. Squares that aren't quite square. One thing pushing against another. Edges that aren't, each of these drawings has 8 or 9 edges in it. The black edge, the white edge, nothing is parallel to anything else. It's that dissonance, it's that edge of confusion that interests me. That's what the work is about. That's the narrative of the work. Almost clarity about not quite confusion is what I want. Dissonance is what I want. The dissonance of place, not thing. The dissonance of intersecting, conflicting objects. Tension is what I want. The unease that even familiar places can carry. The complex meanings that slip away, but not too far away. And the show for me has to be a single thing. That is, this whole room, this whole series of 2 rooms, has to be a single thing. It has to be a single thing the way a mountain is a single thing, or a rock, or a stone. It has to be a single thing that sits there and glares at you in a way that doesn't quite make sense. A reality that isn't quite your reality. But yet every detail of it is full, every aspect of it is full of details. I mean, each of these drawings or sculptures on the floor are full of details. But if they work, when they work, those details are gone. It's a single thing for a moment. And it's that single thing glaring at you that interests me. But the whole room has to do that. Worlds are what I want. Separate worlds, complete and shimmering with doubt. Worlds to be acknowledged, but never explained. One of the most famous books of anthropology in my lifetime, Levi Strauss, is talking about mythology. And he produced a book in which he quoted, I don't know, hundreds of versions of the same mythological story told by separate people in related tribes in South America. And they're all basically the same story, but they're all different. And that's where the information is. That's what's interesting. That's where the power is. That's where the art is. And that's where the meaning is. But there's in the book, halfway through the book, after hundreds of pages and hundreds of stories, he quotes a woman, an American Indian woman, telling him her version of the story. And then he asks her at the end, what's the story about? Tell me what you think about the story. And she says, that's the story. She gave him a fish. Well, this is the meaning of the show is as simple as that. She gave him a fish. There's steel in his paper with oil on it. And that's it. But the mystery is how all that gets done. Not how it gets done, but how it sits in the world. What happens when it sits in the world in that formation rather than another formation. Rather than one formation rather than something that's almost identical, but just slightly different. That's where the power is. That's where the life is. That's where the meaning is.